Immediately before the raid on the Imperial base on Eldani, the team of rebels learns that Andor is in fact a mercenary who is paid to be there, and that raises a much larger question. What are the role of mercenaries within the Rebel Alliance? Well, I figured today we could take a closer look at that. I'm Colin, and this is Sci-Fi Deep Dive. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to head down below and hit that subscribe button. So, as Rogue One is very quick to remind us, the Rebel Alliance is a faction built on hope. A lot of its members have personal grievances against the Galactic Empire, or really just resonate with the cause of the Rebel Alliance, their struggle for freedom from the persecution being delivered upon the people of the galaxy by the Galactic Empire. However, not everyone serving with the Rebel Alliance had such high ideals. There were definitely people working within the Rebel cause who really were only out for themselves, and these people were likely working for that cause for money. It's a basic fact, and we see it on screen during the events of Andor, that mercenaries were working for the Rebel Alliance, and it actually makes sense. You see, one of the biggest challenges with carrying out a rebellion against a government as large and as powerful as the Galactic Empire is manpower. The Empire will always have you beat by a significant margin when it comes to the number of troops on the battlefield. After all, the Empire can conscript people, and there are equally loyal people on the side of the Empire fighting for Imperial values. So how does a scrappy rebellion being built out of people who are fearful for their lives function and be able to counter something as capable as the Empire? Well, a significant part of that is likely mercenaries. From raids like what we saw in Andor, the Rebel Alliance was allowed to build up a significant amount of capital. This money in their pockets allowed them to fund further operations, and most notably would be buying manpower. Sure, there may be people across the galaxy who are willing to stand up against the Empire, but they generally need a faction with a foothold to have something to latch onto. As we see during the events of the Galactic Civil War, the Rebel Alliance didn't really pick up steam until after the Battle of Yavin, when there was a very public defeat of the Galactic Empire. That's when their numbers really began to grow, and they really became a serious thorn in the side for the Galactic Empire. But before you can have your Battle of Yavin, you have to have the million smaller battles that lead you up to that point. You have to organize and build the infrastructure necessary to maintain the rebellion, you have to protect that infrastructure against Imperial forces, and you need to be able to fight small raid battles to be able to sort of gather the supplies you need to carry out something like the Battle of Yavin or the Battle of Scarif. And how do you do that when you're struggling to rally people to your cause? Well, the answer is simple: mercenaries. If you have money, particularly from raids like what we saw in Andor, you can afford to pay people to be there for you. You pay mercenaries to guard your facilities, you pay mercenaries to supplement your troops in combat, and maybe you pay mercenaries for some security roles. However, it's not without risk. You see, the thing with mercenaries is they're always working for the highest bidder in general. So a mercenary could easily be bought off by the other side. It would be fairly simple for the Empire to pay a mercenary a significant amount of money and then send them over to the Rebel Alliance to take a slightly lower pay position to spy on Rebel forces and report that back to the Empire. As such, it's likely that within the Rebel Alliance, mercenaries, while they did play a significant role supplementing Rebel troops and such, were not quite as present as die-hard Rebel loyalists. And this would just come down to trust, the idea that these mercenaries could be bought off by the adversaries and could be double agents. So there's likely a drive within the Rebel Alliance to not put mercenaries in positions that are too critical, but just ones that you can afford to throw someone there, and if they double-cross you, it's not a huge deal. Like I said, this may come down to guarding less important Rebel facilities, or even supplementing Rebel troops in small raids if the mercenaries aren't told ahead of time where the raid is going to be taking place. However, a key fact in the sort of snowballing effect of the Rebel Alliance, especially during the second half of the Galactic Civil War, is that they did gain popular support, and they did gain the support of the people as they moved from system to system. So, by the time of the Battle of Hoth, for example, there likely was enough Rebel forces from people who simply believed in the Rebel cause, where mercenaries were far less necessary. I'm sure they were still around, but they weren't quite as pivotal within the Rebel ranks as they would have been in the early days. At that point, the Rebel Alliance is shifting over to be a force full of people that are really, truly fighting for the ideals that their faction stands for. They're fighting to overthrow the shackles of Imperial tyranny and free themselves from the oppressive hand of the Empire. And that's one of the unique things about the Rebel Alliance among other major factions, is it's one of the very few factions where the people fighting in that faction in general tend to really believe in the cause. If you look at the Republic, they were using clones who, while they may have been loyal to the Republic, they were bred that way. The CIS was using droids, I don't even think that counts. And the Empire was conscripting a lot of its forces, so many of them were basically forced into Imperial military service. But still, to get to the point where you can have that advantage of a volunteer military that is dedicated to your ideals, you first have to get through that early phase, like I said, with mercenaries and such. And to pay for that early phase, you need to have credits. And one of the most notorious rebel raids to steal credits was the raid on Aldhani. And if you'd like to learn about Aldhani as a planet and the Imperial occupation force there, I'll leave a link up here to my video on that. And I'd like you to let me know down in the comments whether you think I'm right about the role of mercenaries within the Rebel Alliance. Do you think they were used to supplement rebel forces in the early days, or do you think they were a relatively rare sight throughout the entire operation of the Rebel Alliance from their early days all the way up to the Battle of Jakku? And if you have anything else you'd like to see me cover in Star Wars, leave it down below in the comments. Last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.